This is a story about how I ended up getting fired from a Mel Gibson movie. No, it isn't. Okay, this is a story about how I ended up working as a runner on an animated feature film where Mel Gibson,
tell them what they want to hear,
voiced the lead character, Rocky the Chicken.
Hey, what's eating Grandpa?
And how I think I got fired. Now, this is my chicken run story.
Here's some free advice.
In it, there are some pearls of wisdom about succeeding in the film industry, making the most of opportunities, building your skill set so you don't fail. And when you do fail, because this story has a bit of a twist, what you do about it. So let's get into it. Cast your minds back to 1998. No? Well, for those too young to remember, it was a time before the internet as we know it was even born.
Let's back up and start from the top.
I had finished university the previous year and was hell-bent on carving out a career in the film industry. I decided the best way would be to write my own ticket by penning a script. It's hard to imagine now a time where it was a big thing to own a video camera, to be an independent video producer and be able to share your work online. Online? That wasn't even a term back then. All I had were pens and paper, and I kicked off with this short film script, a kind of It's a Wonderful Life meets Scrooge type film. Fresh with excitement about this script, I got a call out of the blue. This guy was called Robert Hurley. Now Rob was working for Aardman, and the call was short. They needed help for a few weeks, and as I still had about $5,000 of student debt, my script would have to go on ice. Day one at Aardman, my very first job was to deliver a finished model of Ginger, the main female character in Chicken Run, to the director, Peter Lord. Now, Bristol is a kind of sprawling place, and this was the era pre-sat-nav when getting about required a map. I quickly quelled Rob's initial concerns about me getting lost. As it transpired, Peter Lord lived very close to one of my old college buddies in Cotton. And just like that, I was off to the races. Peter got his chicken and I helped pack up the rest of the pre-production Chicken Run models faster than Gromit lays train track. With everything packed up, the goal for the next 2 weeks was simple.
We've got to get out of here.
Just to move everything from Gas Ferry Road in central Bristol up to Aardman's new feature film facility at Aztec West in North Bristol. Everybody at Aardman was extraordinarily nice, creative and supportive in a way that I've never experienced in my 22 years of video production. Senior creatives chatting with junior runners, just a community of like-minded people, artists sharing a common goal. As I sat in the canteen eating my cheese sandwiches and drinking tea, something gold and shiny caught my eye. I looked again, and I truly understood what the Aardman team meant to Nick, Peter and David as I sat transfixed in the glow of their 2 Oscar trophies on public display. It was a great inspiration to me. At the end of the 2 weeks, there was a big party. It turns out it was Nick Park's 40th, and as I recall, he came dressed as a chicken. He loved it, and his sense of fun and his carefree spirit was truly wonderful.
Cocktail!
Now I must have made a good initial impression because I was asked to stay on and begin working on the movie as a runner. So what does a runner actually do? Turns out, drive. A lot. And manage expectations. My main boss was line producer Carla Shelley and production manager Harry Linden, from whom me and the other runners got our principal instructions. Typical jobs from our unit were to source any materials required by the directors Nick Park and Peter Lord, including 1950s music and some very specific pencils. You get the idea. Alongside the main production department, the runners would also get sequestered by the other departments such as the haberdashery, where they made all the little tiny clothes for the characters, the gaffers, and further afield in Bristol to the armature workshops where they built the Terminator-esque skeletons that articulate the rubber and plasticine chickens. The key thing was to establish priority on your list of to-dos and try and manage each head's of department's expectations, bearing in mind their ask, of course, was always of paramount importance. To help with the task, I was issued a mobile phone, and I have to say at the time I was no expert at sending text messages. These were the days where pressing multiple times on a single button made texting feel as complicated as Morse code. At the time, I drove a diminutive Ford Fiesta 1 litre, the veritable chalk to the cheese of my work vehicle, a long wheelbase VW Sprinter van. Surprisingly, I got to like driving the big van. It was a bit of fun, parallel parking in Corn Street where I had to go to the armature builders, and a challenge I got to enjoy. Lesson being, a good runner is a good driver. You need to keep a cool head, and with or without sat-nav, you should learn to read a map. To be honest, every day was a bit of a whirlwind. I'd get my updated list, get out in the van, return for a T&P break, and do it all again. Over the weeks, I did get a few moments to explore and chat with some of the other crew. I had several illuminating chats with lead animator Merlin Crossingham, who, as it happens, is co-directing the sequel, the aptly named Chicken Run 2. And whilst I was amazed at Merlin's talent, the painstakingly slow production of animation, it didn't really appeal or resonate with me. It did tickle me though somewhat to see Merlin arrive each day on his roaring superbike, only to slow down to an almost imperceptible pace, animating, and then leave at the end of the day in a flash. But full respect to the whole Chicken Run team. The work they'd done on the movie was absolutely fantastic, but I just knew animation wasn't for me. Now after a few weeks, I wanted more, and I decided to go for it, asking Nick Park if he would read my short script. To my surprise, he did, and he cut straight to the chase, asking me why this absolutely needed to be an animation. It kind of caught me on the back foot. I didn't know. I was impetuous and I'd never done this before. The story did contain a fantasy element, but in the long run, it just wasn't enough for the Oscar-winning director. Lesson learned. Know your story and have a vision of how it should be told. The other takeaway is that it's good to ask for help. People can always say no or point you in the right direction, so speak up. Still seeking other opportunities, I was offered the chance to do some photography at John Wright's workshop, one of Aardman's main model-making suppliers in South Bristol. Maybe this could be my big break. Now, whilst I already had a small 35mm point and shoot camera, my dad had this lovely professional 35mm Canon camera, and as this was a big deal, I opted to use that. Now, despite my lack of experience with it, I thought, how hard can it be? Load the film, take the shots. Now this is where my train seemed to come off the tracks. I can remember taking every image, and I was excited, kind of nervous about how this would all come out. Unfortunately for me, when the images were developed, every single one was ruined. Somehow the film had been exposed to the light and I was absolutely gutted. The pictures though were required immediately as the American producers from DreamWorks were in the UK for a production meeting. I was mortified at what had happened, and despite my apologies, the phone never rang again, and that marked the end of my tenure at Aardman. The lesson here: get to know your production kit before you offer to do a paid job, so you know you can deliver. Naturally, as a result of this incident, and for a long time now, I've always had at least one, but mostly two backup cameras on any job. Anyway, back to the story. For me, for the moment, that was it between me and Aardman. Undeterred, I knew this was my time to double down on my career goal of becoming a video producer, and I pushed myself and got 3 jobs. At the time, a video camera and a Mac would cost about £6,000. Now within 2 months, I had enough cash to buy a Sony TRV-900E, a great little DV camera. I got a small business loan for the rest, and by Christmas 1999, I was a video producer, putting together my first show reel. However, that was not the end of the Aardman affair. After all my hard work, and despite a little failure, a year later, just prior to Chicken Run's release, I received a parcel. A parcel like no other. It contained a ton of merchandise. This badge, soft toy of Rocky the Rooster, a DVD, this photograph signed by Nick and Pete thanking me for my hard work, and tickets to the Bristol premiere, as well as the West End premiere of the movie. It was a relief to know that I hadn't been written off, swept under the rug or what have you. At the end of the day, the time and effort you put into something counts. Being fallible is actually an attractive and deeply human characteristic. You might get some heat in the moment, but you'd be surprised how forgiving time is, especially if the project is a success. I'd felt deflated at the way things had ended, but life is like that. Things don't always go right, and you learn by your mistakes. My time on Chicken Run is a part of my journey, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It's helped me make me who I am. I was and am a better man for having been through the experience and having to double down and increase my efforts to succeed as a video producer. So what's the lesson? Well, don't get hung up on rejection. There's always another opportunity or another direction. Nil desperandum, as is the Loret's motto. Do not despair. Now, I love watching Aardman films, especially with my kids, and I'm so glad that I got to work there, if only for a bit. Having 20 years production experience, I certainly respect animators more than ever. Stop motion has got a bit easier, and I have actually enjoyed the few times I've had a go at it. Maybe I just couldn't glean the satisfaction of being an animator like Merlin all those years ago. So, final thoughts? Well, you never stop growing up and learning, so stay open to creative opportunities and give them a go. You'll find yourself more satisfied and fulfilled as you learn new ways to express yourself. And that's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed this little blast from the past. Until next time, I'm Adam Loretz from the Filmmakers Workshop. Have fun and enjoy your filmmaking. Bye.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You've been a wonderful audience.